Hi, welcome back. Today I'm here with the second video in my series of fantasy recommendations. I do love fantasy, I read a lot of it, and so I thought it would be really helpful to put together a curated list of recommendation videos to help you find the types of fantasy or the themes in fantasy that you are looking for. In today's video, I'm going to be recommending to you 10 fantastic fantasy novels that all feature non-Western fantasy settings. Sometimes we want a fantasy novel that is not set in Western settings or not written by white authors. There is one book on this list that is written by a white author but is a non-Western setting. All of the rest of the books on this list are written by authors who are people of color. Let's go ahead and get into this. This is a mix of adult and young adult, for those of you who are wondering, with a variety of inspirations. The first book that I'm going to recommend to you is the only one on this list that I have not yet finished reading, but I will soon, and so far I'm really loving it. I'm about a third of the way into this book so far, and I've read other things by this author. This is Akata Witch by Nnedi Okorafor. This is a fantasy novel set in Nigeria, and people have been talking about it as sort of a Nigerian Harry Potter, which is not so far off from the truth. This is a YA fantasy novel that features a main character who is albino. She was born in America, her parents are Nigerian, she's now living in Nigeria, and she's discovering that there is a magical world that exists that she didn't previously know about. And so far I'm really loving it. In general, I love Nnedi Okorafor's writing, and this is the first in a duology. The second book is called Akata Warrior. My first recommendation is Akata Witch if you're looking for African-inspired fantasy. My next recommendation is an Asian-inspired fantasy novel, and I love everything about this for a lot of reasons. This is probably going to show up on another one of the recommendation videos I'm planning as well. This is Forest of a Thousand Lanterns by Julie C. Dow. This is amazing. It is set in ancient China, and it is a reimagining of the Snow White story, but this book in particular is the backstory of the Evil Queen. And guys, it is one of the best villain backstories I have read. It's so compelling. Shifeng, the main character, is like my Slytherin spirit animal, and I felt for her so much. I cannot say enough good things about this. I'm hoping to get to the second book in the duology soon. The second book is more of the Snow White part of the story, but this one is the Evil Queen's backstory. If you're looking for really great Asian-inspired fantasy, I highly recommend this one, especially if you like villains as much as I do. Next is one of the darkest, grittiest fantasy novels that I've ever read, but it is beautifully crafted. I would say reader beware, this is not going to be the book for everyone, but everyone's been talking about it. This is Black Leopard, Red Wolf by Marlon James. This has been billed as an African Game of Thrones. I'm a little bit iffy about that description in particular, but it is an African-inspired epic fantasy novel. This is literary fantasy. It is own voices for gay representation. The main character in the book is a black gay man, as is the author, and that actually plays a pretty big role in the book. I would say that the main theme of this book is violence enacted on people's bodies by people in positions of power in all of the various ways that that can be done. It is a amazingly crafted, well-written book, but it is quite dark, quite gritty. I do have a complete non-spoiler review for this, which I will link up above if you guys want to go and check that out. It is one where if you're at all concerned about content or trigger warnings, you might want to check it out before you read it, but it is brilliantly written. It is one that has stuck with me. My next recommendation on this list is really more of what I would call fantasy light. This is sort of like the Bronte sisters meets Jane Austen with a touch of magical realism, except written by a Latinx author. It's amazing. I love everything about it, but again, it's not going to be the book for everyone. I just wish more people knew about it. This is The Beautiful Ones by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. I love it so much. It's set in a Belle Epic inspired world, and this is kind of about courtship and society and manners. It is a slower, more character-driven book. Not everybody likes it. I absolutely loved it. It does have a little bit of magic in it, but that's not the main point of the story. But definitely, I think more people should pick it up. It's a little darker than Jane Austen, but not quite as dark as the Bronte sisters, so it's kind of like a blend of that, except with Latinx elements and with some magic to it. So I am going to recommend The Beautiful Ones by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. The next book I want to recommend to you is a Middle Eastern-inspired fantasy novel. This is Reign the Earth by A.C. Gaughen. Like I said, this is the one book on this list that is not written by a person of color author. However, I really love this and the second book in the series and cannot recommend it enough. I would say that this is new adult because it deals with some pretty heavy themes. There is magic, it is a fantasy world, but the main character in Reign the Earth is experiencing domestic violence in her political marriage. So yeah, pretty heavy stuff, but brilliantly written, has a lot of really important things to say, and the second book in the series again is just really great. It's got this morally gray character who is kind of a pirate, and I love it. I think this is an underhyped series the more people should go read. Okay, let's do a few more Middle Eastern inspired fantasy novels. The next one that I want to recommend is An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. This is the first in what is eventually going to be a quartet of books. The first 3 are out so far and I have read the first 2 of them. They are really great, fun, fast-paced YA fantasy. They do get a bit violent and dark at times, but I think they're really great. They have political intrigue and romance and magic, and they are own voices written by a person of color. I'm not sure her ethnicity is. I don't know if she's like Pakistani, or I think she might be Pakistani, but I'm not sure, so don't quote me on that. But yeah, I'm gonna recommend Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. It is really great. If you're looking for Middle Eastern inspired fantasy but you don't want to read a young adult novel, I'm gonna recommend to you City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. This is beautiful. It is inspired by the history and mythology of ancient Arabia. It has jinn and magic, lots of political intrigue, and this is one that is a little more character driven, a little bit slower paced, but if you like political intrigue, if you like character driven novels, I'm highly going to recommend this series to you. So far the first 2 books are out. I have read them. I loved both of them. Both of them were 5 stars for me, and the 3rd book should be coming out sometime next year. And the final Middle Eastern inspired fantasy / sci-fi-ish book that I want to recommend is Mirage by Somaiya Daud. This is actually a debut novel. I really loved it. It's Moroccan inspired but set on another planet, so it's got a little bit of sci-fi elements to it, but it really reads more like fantasy. I enjoyed it and I'm looking forward to reading the next book in the series. This is about a young woman who gets snatched out of her village and taken to another planet to serve as the body double for the princess. For some reason they look exactly alike. We don't know why at the end of this book, but she is forced into this role where if somebody's trying to assassinate the princess, she dies instead. So that's the premise of Mirage. I really enjoyed it. Finally, I have 2 more African-inspired fantasy novels for you. The first one is Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. This is amazing. It was a huge bestseller. This is her debut African-inspired fantasy novel. It draws on West African mythology and is very fast-paced. It's a lot of fun, lots of adventure. I enjoyed it a whole lot. So yeah, recommend that one. And the final series that I want to recommend to you is one of my all-time favorite adult sci-fi fantasy series. It is kind of a blend of sci-fi fantasy. I would say the first book definitely feels more fantasy and the sci-fi elements come in a little bit later, but I think all of them are really brilliant. This is the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin, book 1 in the Broken Earth trilogy. I gave 5 stars to all 3 of the books in this trilogy. They are complete favorites for me. Again, this one is a little bit darker in tone and content. It deals with a lot of pretty heavy themes like oppression and prejudice and slavery. There is magic in here. In later books in the series, it really deals with themes of motherhood and complicated family relationships. Yeah, I love everything about this. Can't recommend it enough. So there you go. Those are my 10 recommendations if you are looking for fantasy that is non-Western. I love all of these books and I hope that you do as well. In the comments down below, let me know if you have any other recommendations of great non-Western fantasy novels. I'm sure there are others. These are some of my favorites, ones that were on my shelf, but I'm always looking for recommendations. This is a genre that I really love and I know there are other people looking for this as well. So talk to me in the comments down below, talk to each other in the comments down below, and recommend other books that would be great options. And if you have any ideas for videos in this fantasy recommendations series that you would like to see me do, leave them in the comments down below as well, and it might be something that I get to. Question of the day, what is one of your favorite non-Western fantasy novels? If you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you want to see more. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.